Who is the Antichrist? If you were a Christian living in the year 64 AD, you probably would have thought the Antichrist was this guy. The Roman Emperor Nero ruled the largest empire in the world. He declared himself to be a god, and he despised Christians, doing unspeakable things to them. You would have been sure the Antichrist was Nero. If you lived during World War II, you might have thought Adolf Hitler was the Antichrist. Today, people have all kinds of theories, from Donald Trump to Elon Musk. People have been guessing who the Antichrist is for a long time. So then you have to ask the question, who's right?
Young charismatic world leader.
The second Antichrist.
The Antichrist.
The Antichrist.
I think there's no stopping Elon Musk.
With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.
If I ever decided to take on the world.
I have taken over the world, and I am the Antichrist.
Okay, in order to answer this question, I need you to ignore all of the theories for a minute. Most of what we know about the Antichrist can be found in just 3 books of the Bible. But the crazy thing is, none of the writers of these books refer to the Antichrist as the Antichrist.
I don't understand.
Instead, they use names like the beast from the sea and the little horn. The term Antichrist does appear in the Bible, but only 4 times and mostly refers to many people who were against Christ at the time. This is why some scholars propose we call him something more generic, like the coming world ruler instead. But we're just gonna call him the Antichrist because it's easier and it sounds way more scary. In this video, we're going to look at the 3 main descriptions the Bible gives of the Antichrist, and then compare them to the top candidates for the Antichrist today. Starting with the strange description given in the book of Daniel. The prophet Daniel was asleep when he was given a vision of a massive storm churning over the surface of the great sea, when suddenly 4 huge beasts came up out of the water, each different from the others. The first beast was like a lion, but had the wings of an eagle. The second was like a bear, with 3 ribs in its mouth. The third was like a leopard, with 4 bird wings and 4 heads. Yes, these descriptions are in the text, and trust me, it only gets more strange from here. The fourth beast, though, was very different. Daniel could barely describe it, only that it had teeth made of iron, was extremely powerful, and had 10 horns. Daniel was later told that each of the beasts represented a kingdom that would rule on the earth, and the horns of the 4th beast represented 10 kings who would rule the entire world. He was staring at the horns when something unusual happened. There was another horn, a little horn, that appeared among the others. As it grew, 3 of the original 10 horns were torn out to make room for it. It had eyes like a human and a mouth that was speaking loud, arrogant words. This little horn was making war with God's people and was defeating them. Daniel was told this little horn represented a new king who would subdue 3 of the 10 original kings and control the entire world for 3.5 years. The same world ruler will make a peace treaty with God's people Israel for 7 years, which he will break halfway through by setting up a mysterious object in God's temple that will be an abomination to God and his people. Okay, so here's what we know so far. There is going to come a world leader who will appear seemingly out of nowhere. Just like the little horn appeared insignificant at first, then took over. He's not going to be a well-known king or president, so we can cross people like Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin off the list. He's also going to appear peaceful at first and do what every US president has been trying to do for years: bring peace to the Middle East. He will then break this treaty after 3.5 years and spend the next 3.5 years hunting down God's people until God comes to destroy him and replace him with Jesus Christ as king. With me so far?
Great.
Because the next description of the Antichrist is going to really blow your mind. Over 600 years after Daniel's vision, one of Jesus' closest disciples, the Apostle John, was given a similar vision about what was going to happen in the future, which he wrote down in the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation. After seeing some pretty awesome / crazy stuff, He also saw a beast coming out of the sea, with 7 heads and 10 horns. Each horn had a crown which represented 10 kings. Sound familiar? This beast was also given power to rule the entire world and war against God's people for, you guessed it, 3.5 years. Okay, so it's clear that this is another description of the Antichrist, but this time we get some new information. It's in John's vision that we learn where the Antichrist gets his power from, a 7-headed red dragon, which we are told is the devil. At some point, the beast is killed, but miraculously comes back to life, astonishing the world. Then, of course, there is the famous mark of the beast, the number 666, which people will be required to put on their right hand or forehead to prove their allegiance to the beast. Many have claimed that this is a clear description of the Roman Emperor Nero mentioned at the beginning of this video, and I could see why. He definitely checks off a lot of the boxes, but not all. Nero never ruled the entire world, although he got pretty close. He never made a 7-year peace treaty with Israel. He was never resurrected from the dead. He never forced people to take his mark on their right hand or forehead. In fact, no one in history can check all of these boxes, which means we need to cross off all of the dictators of history, like Hitler and Mussolini. This leaves us asking the question, is the Antichrist alive today? And if so, can we know who he is? To answer this, we need to look at our final description of the Antichrist found in the book of 2 Thessalonians. But before we do, I think it's important that we ask the question, why the Antichrist? Like, have you ever asked the question, why did God want the early church to know about the Antichrist when he knew they would never actually encounter the Antichrist in their lifetime? Thankfully, the book of 2 Thessalonians tells us why. This book was actually an urgent letter Paul wrote to the church at Thessalonica because they had a big problem. The Thessalonian church had received bad teaching from false teachers who said that Jesus had already returned and left them behind to experience his judgment. This made the church extremely afraid that God had abandoned them. They were so afraid that they even stopped working their day jobs and even retreated from public life altogether. And today, it seems like not much has changed. Just like in Paul's day, many Christians today are living in fear of end times events. They're listening to self-proclaimed prophets who are saying things like, God told me, instead of just opening up the Bible and studying what it says. So let's look at what Paul wrote to the Thessalonians together. In chapter 2, verse 3, Paul says, "Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come," referring to the second coming of Christ, "unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition." He also refers to him as the lawless one. These are different titles that Paul gives for the Antichrist. Okay, now I'm going to highlight all of the characteristics of the Antichrist in orange. It says that the Antichrist is going to exalt himself above all that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. If you skip down to verse 9, we also learn that he's going to work with the power of Satan, working signs and lying wonders with all unrighteous deception. So here you have some of the names of the Antichrist as well as a description of who the Antichrist is. But now I want you to pay attention to something else. But this is where it gets interesting. Notice the word revealed right here and right here. This word revealed in the Greek means to be revealed at a definite point in time. Also here. Now look at this, what is restraining, and he who now restrains. The passage says that the man of sin, the Antichrist, can't be revealed unless what is restraining gets out of the way. So in other words, whatever or whoever the one who restrains is, needs to be removed before the Antichrist is revealed. So what or who could this restrainer be? Some have suggested that maybe the restrainer is Satan, but this doesn't really make much sense because why would Satan want to hold back his own evil plan? Some have suggested that it's the governments of the world, but governments aren't powerful enough to hold back Satan's evil plan. This is why I believe that the restrainer is a reference to the third person of the Trinity, God the Holy Spirit. Right now, the Holy Spirit is holding back Satan's evil plan to wreak havoc on the earth. But there is going to come a day when the Holy Spirit will get out of the way, and it is on that day that the Antichrist will be revealed to the world. So, is it possible for us to know the identity of the Antichrist? Well, as I'm filming this video right now, no, it's not. At least not until the Holy Spirit is removed. Which means us as Christians who have the Holy Spirit living inside of us probably won't be here for when that happens. But that's a topic for another video.